Sorceries versus incantations. Probably one of the weirdest debates in my opinion, considering there's no true answer to this question. Basically, you're dealing with two different sources of magic, being basically just fire, more fire, and more fire on incantation. But with magic, there's really no solid one answer. It just exists. There's also very specific talismans that only one of each can use, and other sources to make your builds better on both. So in today's video, I'll be showing you in Elden Ring, in my opinion, which are better, sorceries and incantations. Note, however, that there are some differences between each that I will not explain. So basically, when it comes to incantations, there's actually a lot of options. Like, a shit ton of options. If you have 9 memory slots, you actually have a ton of choices. Including Destined Death, Holy Damage, which is very good in the DLC, but absolutely dog shit in the base game. Fire, 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 more fire, more fire, black fire, black fire, black fire. Just tons of flames. And then you got bestial incantations, which are mediocre, except for Aurora Rugalea, it's just very good. So the incantations I personally recommend are, on large enemies, Pest Threads and Pest Thread Spears, due to their insane damage towards them, but also on small enemies, I would personally only recommend Pest Thread Spears. For other incantations, Sniper Rifle, because it's a fucking sniper, Hala Shabriri or Flame Grant Me Strength, it's interchangeable, but I personally recommend Flame Grant Me. If you're dealing with a boss, however, that spams fire attacks, use Flame Protect Me. A dragon incantation, preferably Grail's Roar, or Dragon Eyes, Borealis' Mist, or Ghost Flame Breath. And that's pretty much going to be the base build. Now, as for the reason why I prefer incantations over sorcery is because, well, dragon. But also, less weight. If you want a lighter build, well, if you want lower space so you can use more heavy shit like greatswords, then incantations are gonna be for you. Yes, that includes you big bonk people out there. However, I do prefer more dexterous builds, like Reduvia. Yes, controversial, I know. But it's what I like. It turns them into chicken. Ghost Flame Breath. But also, you go with an arcane version, you can actually use the Dragon Communion Seal, which is one of the best options, especially on a very high arcane build. Which also allows you to use Reduvia, arguably one of the best weapons in the game. I still do think that Earth Steel is better, considering how much damage this thing deals. But that's a topic for an entirely separate video. Now, as for the talismans, they are easier to get. But for sorcery, well, yeah, you gotta use specific staffs with specific spells. The best spells, in my opinion, are stuff like Comet, surprisingly, Glintstone Pebble and Comet Shard. And then, of course, Ronnie's Dark Moon, and finally, Knight Comet. Now, your options are much, much more limited on a sorcery build. For staves, you've got a ton of options, and a thrusting sword. Yep, that's right, the Glintstone Sorcery Sword. This thing has low scaling, but actually works pretty well. Somewhat. It can't output 1,000 damage, but it has insanely good magic damage. But I still would recommend a Clear Night Sword over it. As for actual catalysts, well, honestly, if you're gonna go with a build similar to mine with 80 faith and int, don't use the Albinuric, or the Staff of Loss, or the Galmer Staff if you're stupid. Use the Prince of Death Staff. Stupid, I know. Trust me, it's better. It actually does have a few build options, though. In my opinion, you should run it with the light Great Swords of Radon. However, as for other weapons, I recommend Wing of Estelle, not for the Ash of War, but for the heavy attack. I actually do consider the Ash of War to be kind of ass, considering it's stupid situational. Controversial, I know. But also, you can tap fire this. The Wing of Estelle actually packs quite a wallop at close range. Now, as for the Graven School and Graven Mass Talisman, they're much harder to get. However, if you're gonna look for a curved sword, I would most likely recommend the Beastman Colt's curved sword. Specifically Cold Infused, because when two-handed, it has a unique moveset when using jumping attacks. However, I don't really like curved swords. Well, it has a unique jumping attack moveset. And also, it's pretty hard. But also, incantation builds get access to much stronger weapons. Like the goddamn Euphoria. This thing, at +9, has so high holy damage that it's actually just not funny. I still would recommend other weapons, even though that thing is insane, because it's just not obtainable for like 90% of the game. Stuff like the Serpent Flail, which can also be very insane if used right, because of the fiery blast of true destruction. But also the goddamn chicken leg if you have a little bit of arcane. Because for some goddamn reason, they made it scale with faith physically, along with holy. So you have 3 fucking stats. Well, you have 4 fucking... Well, if you have 3 main stats, you want to scale with this if you want to use it with the highest possible damage. Being faith, arcane, and a tad bit of strength with faith, because it barely does shit. As for the weapons, I would personally recommend using on a sorcery build the Glintstone Chris because of his broken Ash of War, which allows you to close the distance if the target begins getting away. It's just a straight up enhanced version of the Glintstone Pebble Ash of War. The Alabaster Lord's great sword because of a weird little interaction it has with charged heavies, which makes it deal more damage compared to other great swords, however not recommended. Goddamn cat. Sophie, please stop. Yeah, we got cats, and it gets kind of annoying when I'm recording because it just doesn't work half the time. Either you don't hear it or you hear it. Do not question me, it's just stuff. But also, as for the talismans I'd recommend you use the Crimson Amber Medallion with, Primal Glintstone Blade's actually a somewhat good choice, considering while it makes you have less health, but with 15%, it's actually just straight up better. If you're gonna be an up-close wizard, I would also recommend spells like Gavel of Haima and Cannon of Haima in case they get away. Now, as for the physic for the sorcerer, you want the Magic Shrouding and Blood-Sucking Tear if you're gonna be up far. However, if you're gonna be up close, I would recommend the Opaline Hard Tier, not the Bubble Tier, because it only negates a single fucking hit. Trust me, I've learned from my past mistakes. If you're gonna be an up-close wizard, you'll want to use shields. Controversial, I know, but if you want to go the least skilled route, then you have to use them. Which also requires 49 strength if you want to use the Verdigris. Now, as for the weapons I'd recommend using with the Verdigris Great Shield, I would personally recommend you use a weapon called the Carrion Sorcery Sword, as I've mentioned, because of its better than average shit. But also, the big sword. Damn, I forgot you have a double tap skill. I haven't played in a while, okay? I haven't played in a few months. Other weapons I'd personally recommend is the Starline Sword because, well, it's better than most other weapons. By a lot. But also, if you want to go with the ultimate tank build, and like, you know, like, use, like, stupidly good shit, like, I don't know, like, Verdigris armor, just don't. Just don't. Just use the Lionel set. Because this on its own is about 60 damn pounds. Now, as for other weapons, I'd personally recommend in PvP to pair up against the mage. These two work very well. This build actually puts you into the perfect position. However, as for other weapons against high poise mages, you'll actually want to go with the frickin' Milady. Because of this stupidly good true combo it has, which is a light into an uncharged heavy. Trust me, we don't do charged heavies in PvP. As for other weapons, you'll want to use frickin' Reglia of Echoad. Because, well, Blender. Now, as for incantations, I personally recommend in PvP, in PvE, there's a ton of options that I just don't want to get into. Midra's Flame of Frenzy is actually worse than an unendurable frenzy in both PvE and PvP because it uses less FP, but it uses more spell slots and does less damage. So it's just unfavorable. Glintstone Breath and Dragon Maw. But Ghost Flame Breath. Ghost Flame Breath is stupidly risky though. And Dragon Maw too, especially if you're going up against someone with big bonk. It's a damn near requirement that you have heal from afar because you can actually shotgun it straight to your feet, which will heal you for an insane amount, like near Erdtree heal levels. And then finally, to get alchemy tools, I personally would recommend Fortisax's Lightning Spear and Dragon's Lightning Strike. Now, as for the weapons, it's actually insanely flexible. You don't want to get into heavy load? Well, just use anything. Basically, I would recommend Verdigris because of obvious reasons. But as for the other weapons, I would personally say Earthsteel Dagger in PvE, but there's also too many options to go into for PvP. Frenzy Burst is insane. Good range, with insanely good damage for the range it has. If you want to go with a full-on sniper build, well, there's not that many options. That's the funny thing. There's not that many because there's damn near nothing. But also for the armor, I recommend for using incantations, like basically any dragon called incantations. The Death Knights that actually boosts these by a good fair amount. Sure, it makes you look like a skeleton, but it's not about fashion, it's about effectiveness. Come at me, bro! As for personally recommended talismans, if you're gonna go with this build in PvE, you're skilled enough, use these two. No, seriously, it does insane damage. And then for the other shit, I would say flux canvas. And then just basically just both use those. It's not the most optimized, but it works. Trust me. Damn it! This thing ain't even meant for, like, fighting, and it's still insane. Now, as for up close, you'll want to use an Endurable Frenzy and Cast. But if you get along the stun window, then just hold Cast in and it should work. Look at this 500 damage per hit. If you want to go for an anti-large enemies build, however, there's a ton of options. Including damned pest threads. But let's just not talk about that for this video, because this video's already long enough as it is. For other gear, I recommend, if you're gonna go with a big bonk mage, which I support y'all slightly, not much, but I do. Use a butchering knife if you want to be fancy. Got the double tap. But also, the Bonnie butchering knife is a somewhat good option. I said somewhat. And as for really weird options, Bubble Horn. Yes, it does crappy damage. No, I will not be asking questions. No, do not ask questions. I like it. For the damned chicken leg build, which is stupidly underrated, all you need is Hellish Abriri and Golden Vow. Do not use any other body buffs or aura buffs. Body buffs and aura buffs are shit that basically just exist. Let's not... To dive a bit deep into it, you've got four kinds of buff. Weapon buffs, which is stuff like the Great Turtle Shield and that kind of things, like Highland Axe. Aura buffs, which is like Hellish Abriri. I mean, like Golden Vow, which is a aura buff, which gives you a unique thing. And then Hellish Abriri is a body buff. There's also special buffs, which, for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna say are janky as fuck. Special buffs you can have like 10 of them at the same time and none of them will override each other. This stuff like magic crowding and blood sucking. Well, buffs to the weapon itself, that's where it begins to get a bit iffy. As for the Ashes of War, I recommend using Real Nice Resolve. Basically just turns you into a god. Hellish Abriri, and then Golden Vow. Allows you to do free K without buffs. And that's excluding me from getting to switch over to Holy Shrouding, which I only just realized. So yeah. Do note though that Holy Shrouding practice here will not boost your damage by much. This is for obvious reasons. As for other weapons, the Maddening Hand for PvP, because while that windup do be insanely long, works very well. Oh look, that's a soldier helm. Meh. Anyway. As for ways to combat these builds, there's actually very few options. Mainly comes down to skill, but there's a few options. Claws of Night. Want to go for an assassin build? Just use these. If you want to go for style points, there's a few options. Personally, for an assassin build, I would like you to note that there are tons of black armor and clothing that do not have good armor rating, but rather good luck. Warrior Jar Shard, or Shard of Alexander, if you actually decide to go for this quest line, because, well, you're not nut. Basically, you got multiple options. Options for other shit. You got the red claws if you want. Well, you want red bear claws if you want to just do shit for some reason. Now, for like other shit, I just have nothing for this video anymore. No, tap out.